Hello, I'm JJ Bull, this is Tifo IRL. Hello, we're going to talk about Arsenal in this video and what's wrong with them, what's wrong with Arsenal, why they don't seem to be improving, and specifically what went wrong against Brentford in the opening day of the Premier League season. There's quite a few things wrong with Arsenal, and it's tough to work out whether it's the manager's fault or whether it's the players not performing. It's probably a bit of both. But let's look at how Arsenal kind of lined up for this Brentford game. They knew basically that Brentford, who are in the blue here, were going to be in a 3-5-2, which is like a 3-4-1-2. That's the 1, that's the 4 across here. And Arsenal lined up as this 4-2-3-1. And what Arsenal always seem to do is end up, there's another video we did about this, they always end up doing a thing that we call the donut. It's like this horseshoe of never-ending nothingness, where they just pass until time itself doesn't exist anymore. That's what they do. So this is how it works, right? Playing Chambers at right back, not a right back. That's maybe a problem for a start. Playing Ben White and Pablo Mari, two similar-ish players, both ball-playing defenders, kind of what you call cultured centre-backs. Neither of them is particularly hard. When you look at stats to do with headers they've won, things like that, White and Mari aren't very good at that. Gabriel wasn't available for this game. Here he is. So he couldn't play, and he's injured. He can't even get off the board. But Gabriel would give you more power in these headers, very important, because the only real guy in the entire team who's got anything about him, any sort of aggression at all, is Kieran Tierney, who's by far and away the best player in Arsenal's team in that game, and has been in a lot of games for ages. What he does in this shape is Tierney gets up to be the main kind of threat, and Tierney had the second most touches of any player in the Brentford game other than Xhaka, because everything was going through Xhaka and Tierney. And the reason for that, because when Martinelli goes here into the half space, you get Balogun kind of around here, Pepe will pull out wide right like this, Smith Rowe will come out like this as well. You think he's a 10, but he's often kind of in these positions here, supported by someone like Chambers here. Then you get Sambi Lokonga, who will sit kind of in midfield here, but because Tierney has gone up and left this massive space, which I'm going to draw with a pencil, open. So Tierney's left this bit obviously empty. So what happens is when the defence pushes up like this, Mari and White, Xhaka, rather than playing midfield along here, drops into this kind of half space. And I'll draw the half space that he's in. Right, so this is what Xhaka covers. He sort of stands here to cover this left back position, which allows Tierney to get up, which is why Tierney is so involved. And Tierney we had something like 6 key passes in this game, and put in about 100 million crosses. But when you're Arsenal, and look at the profile of player we've got here. We'll bring these guys back. The wing backs are always tracking the full backs. Balogun, I'm sure enough, Aubameyang and Lacazette would probably have started here. It's not like they're the most dangerous penalty box headerers that you've ever seen. Headerer is the real word. Smith Rowe, Pepe here. Like if you put crosses again and again and again from Tierney here, if you get him to even here and get him to put balls in the box, who of these are going to score headers? Like none. None of these players are going to score headers. So straight away that's kind of a not particularly productive thing to do, I would say. However, if they did have someone in there who could be a nuisance with headers, that might be useful. If they were able to then pick up the second ball and make use of that, that might be useful. But instead what you saw, and we're talking about this donut horseshoe, the sad horseshoe, it just looks like this. The ball goes to Tierney, Tierney crosses it in, no one wins the header, ends up back with Pepe over here, Brentford come across, or whoever come across to close him down, Pepe's on a bit here, and Pepe now either has to beat 2 or 3 men on his own, or take 1 man on his own. If he gets past him, that's fine. But then Pepe, left-footed over here, cuts back in, and he goes back to Chambers, and Chambers goes back into White, and White goes to Sambi, and Sambi goes across to Xhaka. Then Xhaka puts it back to Tierney, and it goes again and again and again in the donut of sadness, the donut of shame, around and around and around and around and around, never going anywhere. Now, another big problem with the way Arsenal play is that when they build up, they do it really slowly. So let's put them back to like a build up from the goal kick. Now this setup here is not exact, it's not precise, but it's the kind of thing we often see from Arsenal when they're trying to build up from the back. Arteta clearly likes it when his team keeps the ball in possession, and the reason you do that is because when you have the ball, you have control of play, you can dictate things, and you can get your team into the shape you want to move up the pitch in control of the ball. If you just knock it long, like they did quite a lot, Lennon would look for someone like Balogun. I don't think he might have won 1 header or basically 0 headers all game long. So when Leno hit this long ball up to the small striker, and that could be Aubameyang, he's not small, but he's not the biggest guy, he's not going to win every single header. If he does flick it on, there's no runners to get onto it. So you don't have Martinelli making this run in behind to get onto it. You don't have Smith Rowe making that run in behind. You don't have Pepe doing it either. So the long ball up here, bounces the ball into midfield, and then they congest and they go in. But there's no one with any real determination and aggression at midfield to win the second ball. So you play it long, doesn't go anywhere. The long ball from Leno wasn't working to Balogun. When he hits it long over to Pepe, something they did later on, Pepe would try and chest it down. Brentford would come in, just batter him off the ball, get the ball back, and there's a turnover. And then it just didn't work very well for Arsenal. So when they try and build out from the back, they will do something like this. Pass it out to Mari here. And then Brentford will try and close off the passing angle back to the goalkeeper or block Xhaka in here. So basically, when you pass to Mari from here, Mari's options are going to be Tierney or Xhaka. Or you'd hope Martinelli, who should drop to offer this kind of pass here. But Brentford know that. So they've got the two starting strikers. So Mari's here, say, on the ball. This guy's going to get tight to Tierney, so that pass is now not an option. Then Xhaka move over here, but guess what? Someone's going to track Xhaka, so he can't get the ball. The ball goes to Xhaka, then he has to instantly go back. Then Mari has to go back to Leno. Then Leno has to go back to White. Then White's closed down because they're watching this as well. And then Chambers can't really get onto it. And so they end up having to clear it. Because they pass it really slowly. It's really slow, robotic kind of patterns, and everyone knows how they're going to play. So the shape you always see with Arsenal now is this kind of two. It starts off with a two in build-up with Tierney, Xhaka, Sambi, and Chambers. This is what they did against Brentford. Let's say Brighton there. It's not Brighton, it's Brentford. And so then you've got, what they always do as well is like Smith Rowe, you think he's a 10, but they try and overload one side. So Smith Rowe will come over to here, Martinelli might push out here. And so they have this, but they leave like the middle of the pitch kind of blank, and it's the kind of thing that Guardiola does in his teams and Marcelo Bielsa does in his teams. You leave this midfield bit empty, so there's no point in marking it because you're not going to do anything. And in theory, you can overload the middle. But then, overload the sides, I should say. But when you get to these situations, and the team can then move up the pitch, and Smith Rowe can drive at goal, and he's good at doing that, and you've got your forwards, regardless of who they are, Balogun, Aubameyang, whoever. Once you get into these situations, remember Xhaka goes in here, because Tierney goes up. So you get into this position here, right? So we've gone up from the back to the front. Smith Rowe gets in here, gets these positions. Brentford won't be as exposed as this. Everyone gets back. And then you get to these positions, and once again, they can't quite get the final ball through, and so the ball has to go short, and it goes back, and it goes back, and it goes back. Another thing you'll notice is that like, in the first half of this Brentford game, there's always a safe pass, always going backwards, sideways, always backwards. Second half, they're a bit better at it, trying to push it forwards more. Xhaka particularly. Right in this position here, a hypothetical situation, might have Smith Rowe, Martinelli trying to get in here, and in the first half he would have gone back to Tierney, or he would have gone back to someone like Sambi here to then just keep the ball, but you don't win any points with possession. Second half, he's trying to look to fire these kind of balls in to one of these forwards. And this is the thing, because when Arsenal build, they do it so slowly, when they build out from the back in this kind of shape, and even if the opposite team can't really press them, say that they get past the first line of press, which they do, they've got good footballers, so they can do that. But when they get past the press, the way they play is so slow that the opposition team can just come back into a block. So say this is the pressing shape, and say Mari has the ball here, but they manage to get it to Tierney, who's away from his marker, and so they're able to put a little combination of passes together. There's so few rotations, like Smith Rowe's not dropping to take a player away because they're not marking them man-to-man, they're marking them zonally, and there's just no real space. So the opposition team, rather than try and push him when they get past this line, they drop back. And so by the time Arsenal get into the opposition third, what they are greeted with is a block that they just can't get through. And again, that's when you see the sad horseshoe, the donut, the nonsense that no one likes, and then you've got Tierney putting ball after ball after ball into the box, a crowded area full of defenders to people who are not going to be able to head them. That bit doesn't work. So this is the second goal that Brentford scored. It's not exactly the same thing as, I mean, it's very rare that you get teams to score from long throw-ins, but Brentford in particular are very good at throw-ins as set pieces essentially, and Arsenal haven't been the best at defending set pieces. So they've all summer to plan to play this game against Brentford, and then they let in a goal from a fairly routine set piece. And the set piece is a throw-in from this side, it's hurled into this near post, and this is a thing that's wrong with Arsenal, right? So Chambers and Mari are there. I think it's Chambers at front post, doesn't really matter who the other one is, but Mari's here. Now, this ball comes over, and he just has to head this away at the near post, loses his battle. Between two of them, they're squeezed out, and Brentford are able to knock this ball onto the back, and it just floats over the top of people. Ben White can do nothing about it. Guy comes in the back post to score. Now, this is an example of probably the setup's not bad, but no one's taking responsibility, no one's really winning it, and this is where it becomes less tactical and more just, they don't have any mad people in their team. There's no like crazy centre-back who's going to smash that ball away, the header. There's no one that Brentford need to worry about. They were flooding the box with players because they knew they could basically overload them for set pieces and it would cause a problem. And when Arsenal tried to break, they just couldn't because they'd sweep it up. But they just don't have, the only player, like I said earlier, the only player they've got is Tierney, who's got any of the required aggression, determination. And Arsenal leave themselves at different times of the game, like 2v2 and 1v1 at the back against two strikers. The setup basically for this game wasn't great. The defending of the set piece was just, it should not happen. It should not happen. And the first goal they let in is, again, something that they should have been able to stop, but we haven't covered that. So yes, in summary, Arsenal's problems are that they don't have, they've signed Ben White to be able to play balls out from the back, but they don't have anyone next to him who can actually crunch anyone. Gabriel maybe, wasn't available. They keep doing the same thing, slow, predictable patterns, slow, predictable build-up, very robotic, not really using the central space, always wide, and total over-reliance on Tierney at the moment. And then when they get to the final third, they're doing that thing, that donut, that doesn't seem to lead anywhere. First game of the season, so yes, this is a hot take, and I am fully prepared to be very, very wrong with how Arsenal did the season. But the same things we saw at the end of last season were directly on show against Brentford in the first game of the season, and so no wonder Mikel Arteta looked really angry in that. And for more analysis like this all through the season, subscribe here and we'll follow all the bits in Arsenal and see where they improve and see what else they can do, because it needs a lot of work at the moment, injuries aside, and I know it's a hot take. But yeah, that's great. Have a lovely time.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.